going on, Ghost Heads? It's another episode of the Ghost Heads radio show. My name is Ted, aka Steady. With me, I got Retro Ray, and we also got a very special guest for you all. He played your favorite little green spud, Slime, in the Ghostbusters Frozen Empire movie, the stuntman himself, Kevin Mangold. Kevin, how are you, sir?
Thank you guys. Thanks for inviting me. I'm doing very well. Happy to be here. Thank you.
You are doing very well. Before we get into anything else, you, sir, took part in San Diego Comic Con. We were also there covering the event. It was a fantastic year that sort of felt like it was getting back to its full potential and its full strength.
Yeah,
Before we
we
talk
tr-
about your
we
crazy
tried to make
work,
that happen, didn't we?
we
Yeah.
did, we did. But as you know, San Diego is just wild, and it's hard to kind of
Yes.
get together, and it was just so busy this year. But
Yeah.
what was your experience like? Have you been to San Diego Comic-Con before? And what was it like this year for you?
I went about 5 years in a row, but years ago when it was like possible to walk around and stuff. Oddly enough, a very good friend of mine, James Van Heist, he's a writer of the real Ghostbusters comic book, and
Oh,
I knew him way back when I was in college before obviously I had any idea I was going to have anything to do with Ghostbusters. And so now all of these years later, I'm able to go, hey, call him up, hey Jim, guess what? Guess what I'm playing? But yeah, I used to go to help him at at the Comic San Diego Comic Con and a whole bunch of other ones. I used to go, with him to like help sell his comics and all that stuff. And so I'm very familiar with it. But over the years, it's just gotten so crowded. Everybody says the same thing. It's kind of out of reach. But yeah, I had a reason to go this year. So yeah, I made sure to go, and it was a blast. It was, it's pushing through the crowds is kind of worth it because it was great. The stuff you get to see. So.
yeah,
So
no, no,
what
I
were you?
agree.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
So what were you promoting at the show?
My partner was on a panel. He's an author. He's a horror author. He writes horror novels, and he was on a panel there. And so I went with him to, support him and obviously film it and take pictures and all that stuff.
Nice.
And so again, it'll be my last San Diego Comic Con question. It's just always great to kind of hear from another person's perspective. You've been before, and then COVID sort of, put it on timeout, and then the years following, they tried to come back, but the studios were on a strike. So, what did you notice specifically about 2024? Just like the environment, the attendees, or just the panels, like did it feel completely different? Did it feel like nothing had changed, or what was
Oh
your sort of
man,
experience?
no, the scope of it was 1,000%. I don't like 1,000%, 1,000 times different. Because I remember when I went back in the day, it was like tables. It was
Mm,
people with tables and things draped over. I mean, it wasn't giant, uh, you know, uh,
booths.
displays and roller
Yeah.
coasters, and it's like, what is going on? I was shocked by the stuff that was there. I mean, they were people flying in air suits, and no, it was so much beyond what it was, when I used to go.
Yeah, it was a wild year. It was great to get back. It was just, it felt like everybody just had a completely, utterly great time. Not only just the fans, but the guests, all the panelists that we sort of talked with, all of the interviews we did with not only actors but like writers and producers and people
I
who worked on special effects. I mean, people behind the camera. We got to talk to a lot of folks,
I saw that
and
you guys were
every
everywhere. I saw all your pictures and videos, and I mean, I don't know how you guys were everywhere. Somehow you were at like every hall, every panel. You guys did all of it.
I've been before, so I kind of like you. I know my way a little bit around,
Hmm.
and we just got really lucky in a lot of different on a lot of different days. So yeah, but I know everybody wants to hear about you in Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. You've done a lot of stunt work, but I can't imagine you've had a sort of a bigger creature that you've played in your career than the little green spud himself, Slimer. Tell us about maybe when you first got the call, did you know that it was gonna be for a Ghostbusters movie? Did you know who you were gonna be playing? Because I tend to hear a lot of stories about stunt guys do not get told anything until they're in front of the camera and they're like, "All right, here's what you're doing, and go."
Yeah. It wasn't that late, but yes, I was kept out of, the loop for a number of months. I'd worked on a show. I was inside of a spider for Curse of Bridge Hollow with Damon Wayans, and so I was like inside the mechanical spider, and the people that made that spider were friends or worked with Ari Tutin, who was the guy who made the recent Slimer outfit, and he was just looking for someone my size because this is the first time that Slimer was actually on set practical with the actors as opposed to just being on green screen or blue screen. And so specifically, they needed someone my size, which is 5 feet even. And so one, I guess he just said, I'm looking for someone 5 feet tall, and said, yeah, hey, why don't you give Kevin a call? He was the guy that would just fit inside our spider, so he'll probably do. And so when I went into Aryan's shop, we talked, and he said, I've got a job that I think you'll really like, and it's going to be shooting in England, and so you should start getting your passport ready. And so he kind of dropped a few hints about. I kind of was looking around the shop, and I saw things that were green. There was nothing Ghostbusters. In fact, they made a point to take down. They've got a bunch of Ghostbusters stuff. They've got signs in their shop, like the no ghost, the big sign that hangs above the
Sure.
firehouse, and they've got all of their previous, all of them, all the skeletons and everything that they're in Ghostbusters. And they made a point to cover all of that stuff, take all that stuff down. And so I had no idea what I was doing, but I thought for sure, I went home immediately. So wait, so they measured me, and they drew like, they did like the scan, they do a body scan, and they even did, the body mold,
Oh, yeah, the plaster?
the live cast. Yeah, they did the full live
Wow.
cast and everything. And I did all of those things for a number of months before I knew what I was doing. But what I knew was green and shooting in England. And so what I came up with, I'm going to play Gollum. I'm going to be in Lord of the Rings. And I was like super excited. But yeah, it turns out that was actually not the case. So, no, but yeah, he did eventually tell me, what it was. And, obviously once they made the suit and I went in and I had to test, got in it and test for it and everything. And the first time that I really like kind of realized the gravity of it was after I had been doing all of the test footage. We brought some cereal and I was dumping cereal down and I was just throwing stuff around. And you might have seen some of the pictures. We had two tables, a little hole in the middle, and I was popping up from the table and
Oh,
throwing
yeah.
cans and stuff. And they were filming all of that, just obviously to show, to Jason and Gil. And so when I was able to come up, from out of the hole and come around and look, everybody was now, around the back of the camera looking. I was able to see for the first time, and I was just like, "Oh my god!" Not obviously, I knew what I was in, and I knew who I was playing, but it wasn't. It hadn't. He hadn't come to life right there in front of me, and I was looking at it, and all of a sudden, it wasn't me in that thing. It was like, "Oh my god, that's Slimer right there!" That's because I feel like he came to life, And I was working with, Mark Brian Wilson was there, and Robin Shelby was there, and so I was able to work with them on movement and all of that stuff. And so by the time I came around and looked at that screen, I was looking at Slimer and it was like, that's insane. So yeah,
I love that.
it was a cool roller coaster for sure.
So this is kinda what you're talking about. It's a little blurry, I apologize, but you're sitting on this sort of center table, and then they put the entire Slimer outfit, like, on you. You're, like, completely encompassed, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it slides down over my head. The helmet fits down all the way over my nose. In fact, when his mouth is open and you can see him, his tonsils are my nose. You can make out my nose, and then it's easy to see on either side of the tonsils are the little slits where my eyes are. Yeah, you can see it right there, actually, right where my nose goes.
Oh, wow.
And then my arms, I put my arms through, and then they slide the rubber arms over and snap it in. So yeah, it fits right down over the top of me, and it stops right at like my waist. So it's pretty small suit.
Yeah, so here's
Yeah,
another one, probably
yeah,
a better
Yeah, and then
shot.
there you can see the blue tights I'm wearing on my legs. Blue
Yeah,
tights. Yeah.
that's incredible. So I didn't know Robin was on set. We actually spoke to Robin.
Oh, she wasn't
Maybe.
on set. She wasn't on set. She
Oh,
came. She was at the shop here
oh,
in LA
gotcha.
on the first day that I got in it. Ariane invited Robin and Mark to come and you know to come. There were a whole bunch of people that worked on Ghostbusters that were invited there just to like see it for you know to see him come to life again for the first time. So, and it was a real magical day because there was some crazy awesome stories about the way that Slimer came back this time. You know to to be all practical as opposed to CGI and to be small so that he can be on the set with the actors as opposed to you know just you know
Yeah.
blue screened in and but also you know some really cool details like I don't know if you guys have heard this one yet but you know obviously the original Slimer costume has completely deteriorated you know
Yeah.
and so Arian Tutin took the powder, he crumbled it up into powder and mixed it into the new suit that was molded to make the one that I wore. And so that
Wow.
means that his DNA, you know, the original Slimer's DNA is literally in the suit that I wore. And so, you know, when we all got together, it was a whole like family love, camaraderie. Holy crap, here's Slimer coming back to life again, you know. And so to be a part of that was really pretty insane, you know, still is.
It's like a green phoenix. He rose from the ashes.
Yeah.
So I noticed that you're collecting. You got a hoodie that you got put together that you're
Yeah.
putting patches on, and is
Yes.
it from like different Ghostbuster groups throughout the country?
Yeah, so what happened was, you know, I started getting patches. Hollywood Ghostbusters gave me my first patch, and so I sewed it on to my hoodie right here. And then I got a few more, and so I started putting them down the arms until I realized I have no more room. And I don't really want to put them all over the back and all that stuff, so I want to kind of keep some order, you know. So then I ordered not the same hoodie, but a kind of similar black hoodie, which is really awesome. It's like customizable and stuff. And so now I'm starting on that, and I have about room for about six on each arm and then three or four on the front. So it's like, you know, 16, 18 or so, however many I can kind of fill in. So I might have to just start getting like a bunch of hoodies or things because I really hope to get a lot of patches. That's my plan. So I got two
Well,
more. I went to Fort Collins, Colorado last weekend to go to Fort Collins Comic Con, and I got two patches from the Fort Collins Ghostbusters, and then from I think it's the northern. I hope I don't get it wrong, or just the Colorado Ghostbusters. It might be North Colorado, but so
yeah,
I got two more to add. I'm gonna
those
add
are
those.
buddies of mine. Yeah, those are
Oh,
great. Those are
awesome,
great folks.
cool.
So I'm gonna have to send you a few from the great state of Texas.
Please
Uh,
do.
I'm with
Awesome.
the San Antonio chapter. We've been around for, I believe it's our 12th year now. I joined about 3 years ago,
Awesome.
and yeah, we have some great friends up in Austin. You probably may or may not have heard the Yellow Rose Ghostbusters. They're just outside of Houston, so
No, I haven't.
I'll be sure to have a few folks send you some more here shortly.
I will
Definitely.
appreciate it. Thank you so much. And they'll
So
definitely go on either the number two hoodie or number three or four or five. I don't know how many I'm gonna have, but this is the second of hopefully many. I don't know. Even it seems like there are thousands of Ghostbuster groups, and so in fact, I've been looking. I looked online to see like all over the world how many Ghostbuster groups there are. There's that Who You Gonna Call
yes,
.com or whatever, and yeah, there are so many. It's incredible.
you're gonna have a lot of jackets pretty soon filled
Yeah,
up.
yeah. I might have to rethink the idea and start and turn it into like a cloak or some sort of a cape, like a
There
long
you
flowing
go.
cape, so I can
A
fit
cape.
more on it or something.
Absolutely. You're gonna have to start sewing them onto the inside. Like, hey, look at
Right?
these, and
Yeah. So
look at
and
these
oh yeah,
over
actually,
here.
and we're wearing matching shirts by the way,
Yeah, we
or
are.
Oh,
almost anyway.
nice.
Yeah. This is for the
I love that.
Fort Collins, Colorado.
They have the best shirts. They really do.
Yeah.
Those guys. Shout out to the Fort Collins team. Yeah, they're awesome. Um, getting back to Slimer, you probably had not a lot of time, but there's gotta be, some very specific things that you researched and studied to sort of get into the mindset. His mannerisms, the way he moved, is that a lot of your own research and your own ways that you get prepared, or did a lot of the way he moved and stuff like that come from, um, oh my gosh, Gil, who was the director for Frozen Empire? How did that work out?
Um, I did a lot of video testing that they sent to Gil and Jason before I ever even went to England, and so I had been working for quite a few months, I would say, on getting it all down right before I ever even got on the plane to go over there. And in order to do that, like I said originally, I met with Robin and Mark Brian Wilson, so I was able to get firsthand, feedback on what about this and that, and what does this do.
Sure, sure.
Before I did meet with them for actually about half an hour prior on the exact day before they came in, I was in the suit for about half an hour on my own. I was able to go into just a room and close the door and be by myself and sort of feel myself to know where the eyes are and where the nose is and where all the parts are, and make sure I can, big mirror, so I can really become be super happy and then be sad and then really, and so in that way I was able to bring him to life before they opened the door, and I was able to come out and then kind of present Slimer for the people that were there. And then I was able to get feedback, in between each, we would do takes, and I was able to get feedback from everyone, on whether I should bring the elbows in or out, or bend more, or, be more jolly, jolly or less jolly, or wiggly or whatever, So I got a lot of feedback. But I would say probably the most, the thing that I put the most time into was watching all of the videos,
Yeah.
watching, not just watching the full movie, but I watched the hallway scene, the eating from the cart in the original. I watched that scene hundreds of times, probably literally. Like I would go frame by frame and watch, the twists, and, because, it's not enough to just move your arms, but if it's twisting in another way, and I really had to, watch that and try to imitate it. And it's funny because I don't know if anybody like says like that's the exact right thing, but that's the thing that people know. That's a Slimer I knew. If I'm going to be Slimer, then I'm not going to be some new
You wanna be that one.
concept. I don't want to be
Yeah.
some new concept of Slimer. Like I have to be Slimer, and so I put every effort into being Slimer, and not even so much portraying Slimer, but becoming Slimer. And so, there's the mechanics. I don't know how long down this road you want me to go, but
As long as you
there
want.
there's the obvious mechanics of how he moves, and his,
Right.
how his elbows move and how his head moves and all of that stuff. There's those obvious mechanics. But beyond that, there's the mindset. And for me as an actor, and since I was 17 years old in college, I've been an actor, and that's and more so than a puppeteer or a creature performer or a stunt person, or in all of those roles. I am all of those, and I'm super psyched to have all of those roles. But I think the base of all of them is acting. You have to bring a character to life and portray a certain emotion at all times, and know exactly what it is that character wants and doesn't want. And so I put a lot of effort, I feel, into looking into who is Slimer, and and I got to read the script, obviously, and in a way throw out some things from the original, and in
Interesting.
terms of, I mean, in terms of, well, I mean, I'll give you a direct example. Like,
Sure.
I've heard people talk about, okay, who is Slimer before he became a ghost, and there's the whole John Belushi thing, and
The
um,
inspiration, yeah.
yeah, and that's just it. And John Belushi is obviously the inspiration, but no one until recently ever considered that John Belushi was that Slimer is John Belushi before he died. Like, oh, it's John
Right.
Belushi in a past life. That's clearly not what it was. And so I had to put a lot, for me personally. I have research. I didn't actually read the stuff that people thought he was until after I shot. Oddly enough, and I'm glad. But I find out now that they say that the king, that he was a king before he died, or that he was a gangster before he died.
Mm.
Um, and I'm glad I hadn't read those things, and I probably would have set those aside and said that doesn't work for me, and it doesn't work for Slimer. I don't believe, and I don't think John Belushi works for Slimer either, because those characters, all the King, the Gangster, and John Belushi, those characters are all big ego, proud of themselves. They will go do anything, and they're not who Slimer is.
No.
Slimer is hiding for hundreds, at least hundreds of years, and we know that because um, he's gelatinous. That means he has been a ghost for a long time, right? I mean, it's
Right.
deterioration, and it's the reason. Um, well, you know, the ghosts that are newly ghosts have form, but then the longer they go, the more they become, you know,
That's a
slime.
great point.
And so Slimer has been around for a very long time, and he hasn't gone anywhere. He's been in that firehouse for however long he's been able to be in that firehouse, because he found a spot, you know. And I'm thinking like a kitten, you know, a kitten who
Yeah.
has found a safe place, and that kitten will go, you know, and will hiss at you, and will say, "Get away from me! I want to be left alone. I just want to eat." But they won't really hurt you, and frankly, they'll want to sort of cuddle with you. And for me, that sort of view of who Slimer is worked for me better, you know. And in a personal, you know, obviously Slimer's wasn't a cat before his, you know, previous life, but because taking it seriously, he had to be a person. And so um, I would take I I've imagined that the person Slimer would be is was a caring person, and because obviously he doesn't want to hurt any of the kids in the firehouse. He's never out to hurt anyone, and you know,
Right.
again, leaving out the like real Ghostbusters. He's not also not a pet. You know, he's not their
Right.
friend and talking and all that stuff. But he's a
Not yet.
ghost. He's a yeah, right. He's a former human being, you know, who is
Yeah.
now stuck in this plane, who can't get out, and that brings with it a whole lot of hardship and pain, and you know, things that I think you have to add to Slimer. Like Slimer's super fun and like yay, you know, but given the backstory of Slimer, he's been in that firehouse for a whole lot of years, and that story is something that I think is what endears people to Slimer. You know, he isn't just some zoom around, go do anything he wants. He's got, you know, super ego. I'll go. He stays right there in that firehouse, and I don't know, you know, he can go through walls. He could go anywhere. He could go do anything he wants, but he doesn't. And that says a lot to me about who Slimer is.
That is so insightful, and I love getting into the mindset of a creature performer. Thank you so much for telling us all that, because I've talked to a friend of mine, Jonathan Breck, who played the first Jeeper Creeper in those
Mm,
films, who loved how he developed that character. I've had a great opportunity to talk to Andy Serkis, who's
mm,
this, you know, world-renowned creature performer, and so always like hearing about the way that they prepare, the way that they research, the way that they sort of evolve their characters from just what we're seeing on screen to having motivations and feelings. It is so fascinating, and we love hearing about it. So thank you so much for that.
yeah, of course.
I want to ask because Gil is the director, but we all know Jason is his longtime partner in crime, and they're both, you know, probably coexisting to bring this film to life. What was the collaboration like with that duo? I know they're huge fans of the franchise, and they want it to flourish, and they're nurturing it along the way. So tell us about the collaborative process between yourself, Gil, and Jason. What was that like? And just share any stories you would like to.
Well, you know, I know that Gil was often shooting on it on his own when Jason wasn't there for a large part of the movie. But I will say that I think out of his love for Slimer, Jason was there when we shot all of the Slimer stuff, and Gil was there obviously. You know, when we shot the Slimer stuff, there were a few things we did that we had to send over to another set. You know, we had to shoot and then send over to another set by video, and he would watch and then give feedback that way. But
Ah.
on almost every occasion, he was right there with us, and Jason was always there with us, so I always got to you know, get their feedback directly. And what would happen is one of them would want me to do one thing and the other would want me to do the other, and so they would arm wrestle each other, and then whichever no, no, I'm kidding, um Honestly, what I did notice, and I hope they don't, you know, mind my saying this.
Sure.
It really felt to me like Jason has such a fondness, such a love for Slimer that and Gil as well, that they both really wanted to imprint their impression of Slimer
Mm,
on each scene. And so sometimes I would get direction from one and direction from another that wasn't always exactly the same, and so I'd have to kind of
sure.
work out which one. And what was interesting in the movie was to watch and see which take was used in most cases, and that was fun for myself, and I won't blow that. And that part I don't want to give away, but for me, it's very clear to me to look at it, and I know which takes were the ones doing it the way that Jason had asked for, and doing it the takes the way that Gil had asked for. And it's just interesting to see. But in most cases, like coming up out of the trash, they were both there, and we did everything collaboratively, and they were right in sync on that, how I move and all of that stuff. And I think in general, I think they both know obviously the story so well. They know Slimer so well, and so their vision was the same in the end. Little details might not have been the same, but it was always a collaboration between all of us.
So, question on your you've been doing this for years, and a lot of people, if you have not seen, I mean, he's just not worked on Ghostbusters, he's worked on Brightburn. And to me, that movie took a different spin. And it was, I'm a big DC superhero fan and stuff like that. You taking on that role as the character playing, portraying this kid and wearing the mask and the cape, how was it doing that character in that movie?
Yeah, interesting. I have kind of a similar story to that. I was just as a stuntman, I was hired, and obviously I wasn't the actor playing the kid. I was once he became, pretty much anytime he had the hood on when he was doing, any action stuff, then it was me. And that character has a lot of angst. He's angry, and
Yeah.
so I do remember being angry a lot during the filming of that movie. And it's weird how I mean, wasn't a jerk to anybody on set or anything, but you kind of try to stay in. It's the way you move changes. If you're, hey buddy, it changes if you're angry today. If your movements are short, and so even if I have a hood on and a giant cape covering, my body, it's you still want to be who the character is. And I did a lot of really cool stunts. I mean, aside from the character, I did a lot of really cool stunts. I was attached to rigging. I got to fall and swoop and fly, and it was, yeah, really awesome. Some of the stunts that I did were very simple. It was jumping out of a window that wasn't really a window, that had a pad a couple feet below. And I've got like videos on Instagram and stuff of it. But so a lot of the stunts were uh, pretty minor. um, I did love it. I did love working on that movie, though. I'll say that I love working on every movie, so.
Well, cool, man. It was a great movie. It to me, it got overlooked a lot. I would like to see a continuation in some form if they did it, because I felt there was more to tell.
Yeah,
But
oh, for
it
sure.
was just
I think they intended to continue it. It's just James Gunn's doing Superman, and it's a bigger deal. So, but and it does seem like he's kind of shut down the idea of it getting a sequel as well.
oh dang.
Wow.
Oh
I mean,
shit.
I've seen online people have asked, and he just
Yeah.
kind of says, "No, I don't really, have any interest in that." So.
Wow.
Yeah, I think I've seen something similar like that, a response before. You started out as an actor, but I'm curious on when did that transition to stunt work happen, or what kind of motivated you to get into stunt work specifically?
Um, Well, stunt work specifically happened when I did Seabiscuit. I was hired as an actor for Seabiscuit, but I was an actual jockey. I've been a professional thoroughbred jockey for 9 years. I raced
Oh
at
wow.
Santa Anita. Yeah, I raced at Santa Anita racetrack and Hollywood Park and Del Mar and a bunch of other racetracks all over the country. And I was racing at Santa Anita, and Gary Ross, the director of Seabiscuit, came into the jockey's room and asked if I wanted to be in the movie. And I said, heck yeah, I want to be in that movie. And so I played the role. I don't know if you guys remember Seabiscuit, but it's Toby Maguire. And the horse rips a jockey's shirt off, and the jockey's like, that horse is nuts, and runs out. That was the part that I played. So it wasn't a huge role, but I got to speak in it and he
I
ripped my shirt
gotcha.
off. But I was also, as a stunt writer, I was in every race that was in the movie. And so in that way, I got to meet all of the stunt people and, stunt coordinator on that and all of that stuff. And so I was able to move out of horse racing and get into the safer world of stunts, where they lit me on fire and threw me off buildings and bridges and ran me over with cars. And now I've done, I was going to say hundreds, but maybe not that many, but probably close to 100 jobs doing, just stunts where I double kids, mostly women and kids, because I'm 5 feet. So anybody who's
Sure,
five
sure.
feet tall, I double them. So, but as far as, you know, creature suit and stunts are sometimes kind of intermingled. But I actually started doing creature suits when I was 17 years old. I played Brainy Smurf at Marriott's Great America when I was 17. I did a stage show as well as like the park meet and greet. And then when I was 18, I went to Disneyland and I was Mickey Mouse for about 2 years. I played Mickey Mouse. And then I played
Amazing.
Peter Pan, the face character Peter Pan at Disneyland. And I played Peter Pan there for couple years, and until I went to Broadway and I did Peter Pan on Broadway. I didn't play Peter Pan; Kathy Rigby did, but
Right.
I was on Broadway with her, and I played one of the Lost Boys on Broadway. And so I kind of went back and forth. I was on Saved by the Bell when I was in my early 20s, and Silver Spoons and Highway to Heaven and a whole bunch of those kids shows.
Yeah, Saul.
Shows that
Yeah.
we in the 80s and 90s, whatever. And then honestly, I had done a lot of creature suit stuff, both as an actor and then also just regular acting stuff. And I was like in my 20s and then started to get into my late 20s, and I was always playing 13 and 14-year-olds, and then I kind of couldn't do that anymore. And so that's when I really started looking more toward, stunts and creature suit much more so than acting. And so it's kind of worked out that now I'm doing more stunts and creature suit, work.
I love it. Do you have a specific stunt story that sort of sticks with you? You love telling folks about it when you're out at a restaurant or something? Like what is like the one stunt story you just love telling folks?
I do love telling the story, and so it means some people might have heard this already, but let me just tell you this one. I've done a lot of stunts. Yes, I've been lit on fire. I've been hit by cars. I have jumped off bridges and ridiculous things I've done, and I do that mainly because I feel like my fear is broken. Like I really don't have a sense of fear, and sometimes it puts me in a dangerous spot. Like I'll put my feet over the edge of a building, or just do things that are not safe, but
Wow.
as a professional, obviously as a professional stuntman, whether I'm coordinating or stunting myself,
Sure.
everything's obviously very, very, safe and
Safe.
everything. And so I really don't ever get the opportunity to have adrenaline, to have that feeling of, that rush of, and I had gone years and years and years without having that. And even to the point where I'm telling my friends, like, God, I don't know what I've got to do. But, I'm pushing myself to the point where I might injure myself because I'm trying to do things that are, just to get that rush. So I got it on this job. I did a Samsung commercial, and
Okay.
I was basically doubling a kid, and the shot is a helicopter comes up behind me, right up next to my head, the skid, and I reach my arm up and I grab onto the skid, and the helicopter carries me away, way up into the 400 feet or so into the sky, and just carries me away. And so we did that about 10, 15 times over and over and over again. And the way that it worked was the helicopter came behind me and I reached up and grabbed it. And then in the commercial, they're going to cut to the front and show the front of the kid walking and, grabbing a fake bar. And so in that time that they cut away, I have the time to clip into a little safety. There's a ring, and I'm wearing a safety wire harness that,
Gotcha.
harness under my pants. And then the wire goes all the way up my arm and out my hand. So I have basically a few seconds to clip, like 2 seconds to clip into that thing before the helicopter swoops away, because it's not sitting there all day. It comes up and swoops away. And so I've got that little brief time to clip into that thing. And so we did this over and over, and then it comes back and I unclip and I drop down, and then we do it again, right? So we've done that thing 4 or 5 times already. We wound up doing it a bunch, like 10 or 15 times. But on like maybe the fifth or sixth time, I'd gone up and I clipped into the thing and it takes off and it pulls me away. And I know I was clipped. I could feel it. I always tested it and we have a signal. And, it's nothing that if it didn't clip, it like we're going to fly or anything. I knew that. But, um, but I was still hanging on to the skid. I wasn't relying on that thing. I was hanging on
Yeah.
to it. The wire was only for if I let go. And so because it had to look real, it couldn't look like I was just, being held suspended by a cable. So I had to hang on. And on this take, it was, I think, the fifth or the fourth, the helicopter really swooped super sharp. And so that sent my legs really flying and it pulled me out. And I can remember still my arms, just like my fingers were just starting to pull off of the skid. And I looked down and saw, I don't know how high, over 400 feet for sure. It was like we were over multi-story buildings. Like we were way up there. And I looked down and for a brief moment, I got that rush, like, oh God, because my finger started. And then two things happened. I remembered, of course, you've got the cable, and it's not going to happen. But then also the helicopter stopped banking so hard. And so it was really just such a brief, not even a second that I had that, oh, and then I was able to grab back onto it. And I've been hanging on to that, to that adrenaline moment for a few years now. So, and you can
Oh,
see that video. It's on my website, and I think I posted it on Instagram and stuff. But if you go to my website, you can see all of the videos of all the stuff I've done. That video's on there.
what a wild commercial for a cell phone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
That's crazy.
Oh man. Did you? So you mentioned you have this sort of like no fear of anything, and that's what's been kind of driving your career in stunt work. When did you kind of notice? I mean, were you like riding all the roller coasters at a young age, or were you doing dirt bike tricks when you were growing up, or when did that kind of
yeah,
no fear kind of start? Did you kind of figure that out early on?
yeah. No, exactly that. It's always been. I have a very clear memory when I was 5 years old. I grew up in orphanages, and I was in this big orphanage that had a giant staircase at the top, and on either side it had like big ledges, kind of like the one in Ghostbusters that have the lions on, but without the
Sure.
lions. And I remember very clearly when I was 5, there was a tricycle down at the very bottom of it, and I ran off that and jumped onto the tricycle. And as I was jumping, I said, "I'm a stuntman." At 5, I knew
Wow.
I knew I was a stuntman. So yeah, I used to go climb on people's horses. Like I would go into neighbors' yards and I would climb up onto their horse, and I've always just done like anything that I've wanted to do pretty much without fear, and that's always existed. So I've always recognized it, and even as like a teenager, I had to recognize that I have to I have to be careful
Yeah.
because sometimes you just want to run and just go do something. And so it made me more aware of like when I'm making a decision, stop and recognize you're making a decision. And so I've had to kind of use that in a way, to save me from doing stupid things.
I love the way you put that. It also it also has got to, help you when because you mentioned you not only a stuntman, but you're a stunt coordinator,
Yeah,
and stunt coordinators, it's gotta be so much pressure on that job because you have the safety of so many individuals sort of under your watch, so I
yeah,
feel like that those experiences and you sort of observing that you need to put limits on yourself might also kind of help you when it comes to coordinating on these sets and these films and these TV shows. That's got to be wild. I feel like you found your calling at such an early age
yeah.
and you've been living it your whole life. That is
Yeah,
wild. I
pretty
love that.
much. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. It's doing stunts has really taught me the checklist. It's like when you're a pilot, you could be the greatest pilot, but if you don't do that checklist, if you don't check your tires, and if you don't do the checklist, then, you are not a good pilot. And that's definitely the truth for stunts. You do that checklist and you double check it and you make sure that someone else checks your work. And, there's no egos in that department.
So since you've been doing this for years, and most stunt people tend to break some bones in their body, have you broken anything?
I have broken everything with the exception of my collarbone. That is literally the truth. I've broken my neck, I've broken my back,
Oh,
I've broken both elbows, I've broken both ankles. I have broken everything except my collarbone.
Oh my
wow.
gosh,
Yeah, but
that is
I'm
wild.
totally healthy now. I can do backflips and I can walk on my hands, and I'm 100% now.
Dude,
That
that's
I haven't broken anything, so I'm like the exact opposite of you.
Yeah.
I have a much my level of not fear, my level of being too careful, I don't know what to call that, is like 1%, where yours is like 99%.
Well, just to be clear, the majority of my injuries happen in horse racing, not in stunting. So
oh,
it's the horse racing that's not so safe. And I was 30. I mean, you don't know, but I was 35 years old when I rode my first race. That's the oldest apprentice in history. Apprentices, it's your first year of racing, and most jockeys retire well before their 30s. And I was starting racing, rode my first race when I was 35. And to me, that comes about. I don't know who gets on the back of a thoroughbred and breaks out of a gate with 11 other horses without growing up doing that, and I just went and jumped on one and did it. And so that in that way, in that aspect, I think my lack of fear did wind up getting me hurt because I broke a bunch of stuff.
Wow.
And so in a way, that lack of safety, and maybe in that industry I assumed that others would have the backs of the jockeys and discovered they didn't. And so when I had the ability to go do something, and I do mean safer, it's kind of a joke to say, I got out of horse racing to go do the safer, into the safer world of stunts. It's funny,
Wow.
like, oh, it's safe to do stunts, but compared to horse racing, no doubt it is.
That never would have imagined. I mean, clearly it's a sport. All sports have some level of injuries, but you don't hear a lot about injuries in horse racing, but it makes a lot of sense. So
Well, you
it's
hear a lot about the
unfortunate to hear
horses.
about
Yeah,
that.
well, you hear a lot about the horses being injured. I mean, we hear about that,
Right.
horse deaths happening all the time. And then you just have to assume that, if the horses are injured, there's going to be someone on their back.
My gosh. Yeah. That's
I'm gonna grab my
pain to
dog
hear
here real
that.
quick. My dog was licking himself to death, so I had to grab him real quick. Sorry.
Thought you were about to grab a horse.
Oh yeah, no, I heard him licking himself over there. So, all right, sorry about that.
It's all
so
right.
now
No
that you're getting
problem.
a taste of the convention scene, how is it getting to meet, like you said, you got to meet the Ghostbuster fans and you're getting patches. Now that you have a figure that Funko Pop and all of the Slimer
A
stuff.
bunch of them, a bunch of
Yeah.
them. There's Brightburn Funkos, and so yeah, more than just the Ghostbuster Funko Pops.
So now that people, because you're doing it for the Ghostbuster stuff, which
Yeah.
ones are you getting? Are you getting a mixture of both, the Brightburn and Ghostbuster
Oh,
pop
almost all
sign?
go. No, just mostly Ghostbusters. Yeah, it's almost all Ghostbuster stuff. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, and I've signed some really cool things, stuff that I hadn't even seen before. Some of the fans would bring me like mugs that had. I saw one in particular that was it's a Slimer mug that had green slime like on the inside of the cup. I don't know how to describe it, but when you poured it, it looked like it was running down, and when you
Oh
turn it back,
wow.
it runs back there. So it's not really in it. You can put drink in the cup,
Sure,
but
sure,
on
sure.
on the
It's
like on the
built within
outside
the
of the cup.
walls of it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was so cool. And I was like, "Where did you get that?" And I don't know, but I found it on eBay. I did find that. So I've been chasing most most of the Ghostbusters Slimer stuff specifically. I've been chasing it. So.
You have
Nice.
a couple of upcoming projects that are sort of high profile, if you will. The first one of which is first time directorial debut by SNL alum Kyle Mooney. The film is called Y2K. It drops on December 6th. And I'm going to be careful about what your role is. So I'm not going to say what it is, just in case there's fans who don't want to know quite yet, who might not have seen the trailers. but
Hmm.
specifically being on that set with that incredible young cast. I mean, Rachel Ziegler, Jaden Martell. I've had a chance to talk to
Hmm.
both of those individuals before, and then just being on set with Kyle Mooney for his first time directorial debut. What was that experience like? How much did you enjoy it? What challenges did you face while, let's just say, creature acting on that
Yeah.
set?
Yeah, it's actually his second movie. He directed Grigsby Bear, and if you haven't seen Grigsby Bear, you should go check that
Interesting.
out because that will
Okay.
inform a lot about how this movie goes. And I say that because Grigsby Bear is emotional and heady. It's smart and it's about relationships, and it's a lot of action and it's funny because there's no doubt he is funny, but he's also smart and he knows relationships and storytelling,
Wow.
and so that's really what makes me happy. But Y2K was such a great script when I read it. It was, well, funny as hell for one thing. Like not only
Yes.
script, but being on set and watching some of the, such like dry humor, and like it was always so funny. And then, so just reading the script out, it's funny to read and go, oh yeah, that's a funny line, but to see how he's got it all, delivered, it's just unreal. It's he was really, the whole thing was a lot of fun. Like I I've been eager for this movie for, a year now. I've been waiting for this movie, and you guys got to see it, and I'm so mad that you guys got to see it because
You haven't
everybody
seen
went.
the finished product yet?
I haven't seen it. No, I didn't go to South by Southwest.
Oh man.
No. The movie The Primevals was premiering here on the same weekend, and I had to go to the premiere of The Primevals here. I played a
Gotcha.
hominid in The Primevals, and so I didn't go. I mean, I probably wouldn't have gone, to see that anyway, but the premiere for Primevals was here in LA. So no, I didn't get to see it, but I am really eager. And I, looked at the little frame grabs of my character from the trailer, and I'm really psyched to see how he looks and everything. But
It,
I mean, I had watched every playback, so I know exactly how it looks, but how it edits together, I'm really looking forward to seeing. So.
yeah, it is such a wild film. Not just because it's so funny and witty, and it's a horror comedy that, it doesn't take itself too seriously, and the characters are written so well. All of that stuff is great. But for me, I was in high school in 1999. Like
Mm,
Y2K.
mm,
I'm not gonna say we were worried, but everybody was just like,
yeah.
what if something were to go wrong around that time? And just the nostalgia aspect, bringing back not only the music, but like the toys and the gadgets and just the entire scene. I feel like this might be the first film sort of directed towards Generation Y. I can't think of another film that's been so specific on its target sort of audience or that time period. But
Mm,
this is like the closest you'll get to it. And
mm-hmm.
so
Yeah.
I'm right dead center in that demographic. And it's
Yeah.
just it
It's
was
very
such a
nostalgic. Very
very,
nostalgic,
yeah,
wasn't it?
visceral experience just to kind of be thrown back into those years
Yeah.
20, 22, 23 years ago now,
Yeah.
when that was all going down. But I'm glad to hear you had such a great time on that set, and I'm gonna, like I said, I'm gonna keep it, try and hush hush, because I went in completely blind. I think I
Yeah.
might have heard a tagline for it, but I
Uh-huh.
had no idea what it was about, and I was just so shocked and blown away by it. And like you mentioned, it is so witty, it is so funny, and I think for every person that goes and watches it, just don't have any preconceived notions. Just go into it because it is absurd when you kind of watch it as a whole, but I it never sort of crosses that line into parody, and I think
Well,
that's what makes it so unique is that it's not a parody film by any means. It really, walks that fine line of a horror, comedy, and it was so fantastic.
well, the funny
Oh,
thing is, as an older person, is for me being the old man in the group. Getting okay. I was
I
in
don't know.
okay. So,
I'm 50. I'm 56. I'm not.
oh
I'm not.
shoot, dang. Okay, you got me top there. I'm 48. I'm not there
Yeah.
yet, but dang, you look good for your age.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, for okay, so you were in my boat. You were with me. I worked in the medical field at the time, so we were going like literally from the computer side of it, we were all freaking out. We were going and doing updates on all these computers
Yeah. Oh yeah.
at this time because they were worried, like literally, that this was going to crash.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny. This movie is what they thought was going to happen and didn't happen, but it's so perfect in that aspect. But yeah, it really made us think at that time frame because there were some people who were preparing for the worst and
Yeah.
some who weren't. But it's crazy, and it's funny. I keep forgetting that you're young, Ted, and you were still in high school at the time. That's so crazy.
I was
you know,
right there.
I like that. I wouldn't call it a trend, but I like seeing that thing like in Glorious Bastards, where they can change the actual history in a movie. And what was the other, the stunt, the Manson murder movie where they
Oh
changed.
yeah.
He
One
changed
a night in Hollywood, something like that.
Nine Hollywood. Yeah, where he changes the ending and it doesn't happen, and I kind of like that trend, where you can retell a history in a different way. So in a way, I think Y2K kind of fits into that because it's what we all thought would happen, and this is like, oh, what if it all went this direction instead? So because there's a history that we all know, but to see a different turnout is kind of a fun, I like doing that. So.
Well, the
Yeah,
funny thing is,
incredibly fun. Not
th-
just not just went in this direction, but like went really far in that direction, like
Yeah,
as
I can't
far
wait.
as
I
you could
can't
take
wait
it.
to see it, man.
well, the funny thing is, I can't wait to see the generation currently watching this because I can't wait to see their reactions because, of course, they may not have been born at that time frame. So
Mhm.
I can't wait to see their reactions on this as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's
You also have another really high profile project coming out very soon, Skeleton Crew, which is a series based in the Star Wars universe. Jude Law is the lead, who was revealed to be a Jedi in the most recent trailer. I'm not spoiling anything, folks. Disney put that out.
yeah.
So I know better than to ask you about any specifics regarding the story, but just tease us, the fans, about how wonderful this project is, or just what was your experience like being on the set of a Star Wars project? It doesn't really get bigger than that.
Yeah, it's weird because almost, I've been doing this like I said, I started doing this theatrical stuff when I was 17 years old when I first left high school, and I've done a lot of different projects, and feels like all of a sudden I've come into these like iconic, to be Slimer, and then, I've always wanted to be, I'm like every geek kid growing up. I was the nerdiest about Star Wars. I wanted to be in Star Wars so bad. And every time I would watch a Star Wars movie, any show or any movie or anything having anything to do with Star Wars, if there was any character in there that I could have been, oh, I was mad. That was me. That was my role right there. I should have done that. And my I just kind of willed it. I kind of willed it into being that I wound up on Star Wars, and it was I'm just I can't say really much about it, but I'm
Of course.
super super excited to have been on in that world, like standing in that world, and to be looking at the not looking sitting on and being a part of the vehicles from Star Wars, and that was just unreal, right up there with being in the firehouse. It's
Oh,
all just like mind blowing. It's all just like, holy crap, what is happening? I tell the story to people, my friends and stuff. I tell the story. It really does feel like this. It feels like I got up all groggy one morning, like, damn, what am I going to do for my life? And I went to a Denny's and I sat down, and ACDC was at the booth next to me, and they're griping about, we really need a drummer. Hey kid, you want to be my drummer? And here I am, the drummer for ACDC, and I'm on this podcast, and you guys are asking me, how did it happen that you became the drummer for ACDC? And that is really how it feels. It's just like so bizarre that, I'm talking about being on the set of the Firehouse and being on the set of Star Wars and, all of these other, the Y2K that is it's going to be a cult hit. It's going to be huge. I know it
massive.
is. I mean,
So
Fred
Well,
Durst is in it. How is it not going to be huge?
yes, I was going to bring that up, but I didn't want to spoil anything. But yes,
Well, I mean, he's in the trailer, so.
He's in the trailer and he's on the post. He's on one of the posters, I think. And I
Yeah.
I almost feel like they should have kept that hidden because watching it for the first time, we had no idea he was in the movie. And
Yeah.
so when he comes out in the manner that he does, it is so epic the way he's introduced, and we're just like, how is this happening? We've just felt like, what are we watching now? Fred Durst is in a movie, and he's not Fred Durst playing like Survivor number 4. It's Fred Durst playing Fred Durst
Right.
while the world's ending. Like, it's
Yeah.
just so amazing, and everything that happens after he's in it is like gold. Just from that point forward, the movie becomes something completely, different entirely,
Yeah.
and it's just gold. I wanna watch it again. I can't wait to see it when it comes out, and I
Cool.
can't wait for you to see it, and, congrats to you on all your success. You've had a massive, year and a half, so far, and, there's so many great things we can't wait to see from you. I'll ask you one last question about Slimer, and you've already kind of answered this a little bit, but what does it mean to you to play this iconic character that fans have been loving for 40 years now? And you're being recognized for it. You're meeting people to talk about it, like us, and also at these conventions. Like, what does it mean to you your career and going forward, just to be a part of that iconic character, this iconic franchise, and you always will now. You're part of history.
Yeah, it's still sort of just sinking in, and I get emotional about it every time I'm asked to I'm asked about it in a way because I would say I was warned. I was warned, before I went off to England, like, hey, you're about to become a part of a very big deal, and I didn't know. I didn't know about the Ghostbuster fandom, and for people who don't know about the Ghostbuster fandom, there's fans for every movie. Everybody likes their movies, and everybody will watch. Like everybody has some movie they'll watch a bunch of times in their life. But there are only a few, I think, projects that exist that have, Star Wars maybe being one of them, but very few. I mean, I struggle to think of another one. Ghostbusters and Star Wars. I mean, there might be a few others that are on that level, but
Sure.
the fan level of the Ghostbuster fans, their level of commitment and their like the how it rises, the level it rises in their life is just unreal. It's unreal that they incorporate their love of Ghostbusters into doing charity work and into even just how they make decisions in their life and how they treat their kids. And the thing that I've really loved about it, as I see, and this is going to get emotional and kind of personal for me, is every con that I've gone to, every time I've gone to any kind of signing, there's always more than one person who tells me about the importance of the connection with their mother or father and how the movie helped that. As in, my father took me to see the movie when I was 4, and we've been watching it every year, and we dress up as Ghostbusters together on Halloween. And I've had so many of those stories, and quite a few of them that the parent had passed. And so Ghostbusters was their connection to their parent. And I've done phone calls to parents in the hospital, and I've, taken pictures with people that they send to their parents. Like, you're not going to believe. And it's so often I hear, my dad loves Ghostbusters, and my mom loves, so often the connection is through their parents. And being someone who did not have the option of having parents growing up, that connection now is maybe more powerful than it's for my own. It should be for my own good, because it's heavy. It's a lot in a good way. And I absolutely love it. And I'll tell you one more quick example. That's one of my favorite is I guess won't give details, but there are kids who come out of their shell as a result of meeting someone. And I was told by someone that my son is autistic and he doesn't speak and he doesn't even really smile. And today, meeting you, he has this big smile and he was able to say yes and no and answer questions and
Wow.
have a part of a conversation like, do you like that, and ever to say yes and to understand. And so to be able to be a part of that sort of thing, and to see the reaction on the parents faces and all of that, is it's more than I've ever imagined. I never thought I would be the face on a billboard. I mean, it's not my face obviously, but billboards of Slimer everywhere. And he's such an iconic character. you know he's global, he's intercontinental, everybody knows Slimer. And so to have the opportunity to play that character and be a part of the lives of all of those people who've watched him, and it's overwhelming at times.
Well, that's powerful. Thank you for sharing that sentiment. You're right about the Ghostbusters fandom. Been a part of it for all my life, and something you mentioned was, fans taking their passion for the franchise and turning it into charity and good works, which is um, something that I looked for, and searched out, because I wasn't always aware that there was chapters, and you clearly know how many chapters there are now. But I joined the chapter because it allowed me to do two things. It allowed me to celebrate my passion for the franchise, and it also allowed me a medium of doing good works in my community, my and charity, just like you mentioned. Currently this week, which is a great segue, you guys here in San Antonio, you guys can drop off school supplies for teachers for the Indian Creek Elementary School, which is on the west side of town. There will be a single drop off location. It is our favorite comic book shop, Dragon's Lair at the Alamo Ranch location. The box will be there starting today through Sunday morning. Let's give it Sunday morning. And you can drop off erasers, pencils, glue sticks, dry erase markers, anything you think a teacher would absolutely need. We're going to help out those teachers to make sure they don't have to pay a dime of their own money for supplies to teach our kids and our families. So if you want to help out, please bring those school supplies, teacher supplies, to the Dragon's Lair at Alamo Ranch location starting today, which is, it's the 20th, and then through Sunday. And we will deliver those next Monday in our suits, saying good morning to all the young boys and girls at Indian Creek Elementary. Cannot wait to see them. Thank you guys in advance who also have already dropped off donations. We had a lot of donations given to us this past weekend at an event, and we're looking for more. So please help us out if you can. And Kevin,
Awesome.
want
I
to
like
thank
that.
you so much. Yeah, appreciate it. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. You gave us tremendous insight into the mind of a creature performer. You played some iconic roles, and there are so many fantastic projects that fans are going to be able to see coming up, and they will all get to say, "I know that guy." Thank you
Awesome,
again so
thank
much,
you.
Kevin. Appreciate everything, and can't wait for folks to see what you got coming up.
Thank you very much, thanks for having me. I enjoyed myself. Nice to meet you guys.